Hi folks, how you doing? This is Iqbal with NVIDIA Weekly Analysis and Assessment. Another good week for NVIDIA. If you remember, I made two predictions in my previous video. Number one, I made the prediction that the week will end as positive weekly closing. And number two, my price target for the last week was 145 for NVIDIA. So both of my predictions almost came true. The last week ended in positive, and also Nvidia almost touched 145. In this video, I will make further assessment and predictions for next week. Now, let's get started. Starting with the daily summary, on Friday, Nvidia closed at 144.47. That was 4.45% up. And after hours is still up about 0.36%. Last 5 days, you see that Nvidia is still up about 4.34%. And last 1 year, you see Nvidia is still up about 200%. So that's why you saw some corrections happen in last few weeks. But now Nvidia gained some momentum. Hopefully, it can carry the same momentum next week. Now let's take a look candlestick chart on the weekly snapshot. On your screen, you see candlestick chart on the weekly snapshot. You can notice that the last week we ended positive, the big candlestick, and before that also ended positive, and one more week prior also ended positive. So three consecutive weeks positive ending, and that's a good sign. And before that, you can notice no clarity of direction. Some weeks are up and some are down, and it was similar to this one. But now Nvidia gained some momentum. Hopefully, Nvidia can show this behavior that we experienced sometime in October or November last year. You see, 4 or 5 consecutive positive closings for Nvidia in October. So next week, based on the candlestick chart, my prediction is Nvidia should also close positive by the end of next week. Now let's take a look forward P for Nvidia. In this table, you see forward P for Nvidia and other AI stocks and also the weekly comparison. As of Friday, Nvidia forward P is at 41.75. 1 week prior, it was 39.62. So it went up last week. And if you take a look few more weeks prior, it was ranging around 38, and sometime in December it was 41.17. So historically, last 6 weeks, you see that the average was 40.66. So at this point, not too different from the 6 weeks of average, 41.75 versus 40.66, but still, I believe Nvidia has more potential to go further up next week. Palantir forward P 234.97, slightly higher than the last week closing. And if you take a look average of the last 6 weeks, you see that the average is 223. And last week also good for Palantir as well. SMCI forward P is 10.49, not a big difference from 1 week prior, but if you take a look 6 weeks of average, it gives the forward P of about 11, right? So 10.49, not too far off from the weekly average for last 6 weeks. AMD 28.30. Again, you see that AMD also ranging between 28 and 30. Last 6 weeks average of the forward P is about 29.55. So not a major change from the weekly average of the last 6 weeks. But still, AMD and SMCI also has more potential to go further up in next few weeks before the earnings. Now let's take a look quarterly percentage change analysis for Nvidia. You see quarterly percentage analysis for Nvidia on your screen based on the cumulative percentage change. In this quarter, after previous earnings, Nvidia is still below 0.037% from the previous earnings report. In the last quarter, Nvidia touched the minimum point 12.81 and the highest 25.74%. So, with that being said, I think that Nvidia can go up another 20% before the next earnings. And that is probably 6 weeks from now, or maybe 7 weeks from now. And that translates to Nvidia stock price of around 160. Now let's take a look some technical charts for Nvidia. You see hourly interval chart for Nvidia in a 90-day span and also the Fibonacci levels. So based on the 23% retracement, the Fibonacci level was 140.6. And if you remember last week, multiple times Nvidia tried to break this level, but no success. But on Friday, it was able to break that level, or maybe on Thursday after hours. The next level of resistance is 152.89. So from 144 through 152, I do not see any major resistance, right? So hopefully Nvidia can break all-time high of 152. If not next week, probably the following week or so, right? But if Nvidia gets some correction from here, then the next level of support is 140.63, and after that is 133.05. So some of you who bought Nvidia stock around 133, as I suggested, and also around 126, I also suggested that. So those two are good levels to buy. So probably in just few weeks you would have made good profit if you bought on those levels. And based on the MACD chart, you see the second chart from the top. Let me make it bigger. You see that strong positive momentum on Nvidia on Friday. So there is some slight chance that Nvidia might take a little correction on Monday because the curve is very steep. So it has to come down just like this, right? So it went up and then it did some correction and then went down. And also you see here. So my fear is on Monday we might see some slowdown or some drop on Nvidia based on MACD. But if that happens, it does not mean that the downtrend on Nvidia has started. And if you look at RSI, the second table from the top, at this point RSI is at 77. That tells Nvidia is slightly overbought at this point, but I do not read too much into RSI because, in my opinion, RSI is a lagging indicator. So, historically speaking, if you look at in the past, whenever Nvidia went up above 70, you saw some correction happen right here, here, and also here. So, same thing might happen on Monday or Tuesday, some little correction based on RSI as well. Now, let's take a look some news regarding Nvidia. You see some news regarding Nvidia and overall market on your screen. Starting with this one that says equities rise as markets assess manufacturing data. Fed officials comments. So as you can notice, manufacturing data came better than expected. Let's take a look. So you see that ISM manufacturing data came better than expected. The forecast was 48.2, actuals came 49.3, and that's a good sign. And this ISM manufacturing data, which we also call it PMI, is a combination of new orders 30%, production orders 25%, employment 20%, supplier deliveries 15%, and inventory 10%. So overall, it gives a big picture of how the manufacturing in the US is going month over month. So the numbers higher than the forecast tell that the manufacturing activity is going in the right direction. So that signal a positive indicator to the overall stock market. So not just Nvidia, most of the stocks were up on Friday. Overall market was up on Friday. Let's put it this way. So here it says Nvidia's $2 trillion AI rally in 2024 fueled by chips, startups, and robotics. So 2024 was a very good year for Nvidia stockholders. As you can notice, Nvidia was up about 200% in 2024. And let's take a look this one that's also important that says Nvidia shares are trading higher amid strength in AI and chip stocks. The company and Cerence announced a collaboration. I don't know if you have noticed or not, the stocks of the Cerence has gone up too much on just one day on Friday. Let's take a look. So you see that in just one day, Cerence was up about 143%. And thanks to this news, that is the collaboration between NVIDIA and Cerence. And if you scroll down further to see anything regarding NVIDIA on Friday, I do not see anything that we should be taking a look. So nothing much. Now let's take a look my watch list. On my watch list, you see that most of the stocks were up on Friday. The highest positive change is on SMCI, and also after hours continues to go up. So as I mentioned in my previous video that SMCI has more potential to go further up before the next earning, and also there's another event that's going to happen in February. Hopefully they can be able to report the 10K and other financials data due before February 25. So if they do it before the deadline, then nobody can stop SMCI from making new highs. Now let's take a look at what are the economic data due next week. So for next week, you see Monday, nothing much coming up. Tuesday, no critical data. Wednesday, we have important data, and that is ADP employment, and that would tell overall employment picture for last month, and also minutes of Fed's December FOMC meeting. So Wednesday is important in terms of the economic data. Thursday, nothing much. On Friday, also very important, it says the US employment report and also US unemployment rate. So market would be paying attention on these data for next week. So that's all about my analysis and assessment for next week. Overall, if I summarize today's video, next week I also think that Nvidia should close positive. In my opinion, next week Nvidia would be trading between 140 and 150. I hope you like the video. Thank you so much for watching. Talk to you more in the next video. Take care.